I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Steve Gable, and it is my privilege tonight to introduce to you the Reverend Lance Ousley. He is a canon from the Diocese of Olympia. He is the priest in charge of St. John's Episcopal Church in Kirkland, Washington, and is the canon for stewardship and development in the Diocese of Olympia. I realize that some of us don't remember everything we learned in the 5th grade, so I want to take just a moment to review some geography. The Diocese of Olympia, first of all, is named for the capital city of the state of Washington, but the largest city in the diocese and the place where the diocese has its offices is Seattle. So think of Lance as being from Seattle. Secondly, I want to remind everyone that the state of Washington is not a province of Canada. So with that, I give you Lance Ousley, who will take just a minute to introduce his wife and to say anything else that he wants to say briefly about himself.
Thank you. My wife and I want to thank all of you for this incredible opportunity to be here with you, to walk with you in this discernment as God chooses a bishop of the Diocese of Indianapolis. And it is an incredible experience to be here with my colleagues, walking with them. We have formed a great community because of the good work of your search committee and your transition committee. And that is indicative of the hospitality that I have received in this diocese at a TENS conference 7 or 8 years ago, at General Convention in 2012. You just always love everybody with incredible grace and mercy and abundance. And when I got a phone call from a friend in Kansas who said, "I've seen the profile and I want to talk to you about something. I want you to consider this, putting your name in, and I want to nominate you." I said, "Indianapolis, those people are great. Send me the profile." "Yes, I want to look at it." And I looked at the profile, and Janessa and I prayed about it, and here we are today. So thank you for this blessing to be with you and to be walking with you. It truly is a blessing to us.
You all know the format by now. The first 2 questions are the mandatories. The first is this: the Diocese of Indianapolis is comprised of many small parishes, most of them outside metropolitan Indianapolis. How have you built community across geographic, economic, and social differences? And how will this experience help you build community in our diocese?
Serving in the Diocese of Texas and Olympia as a youth minister, a parish priest, a convocational dean, and a bishop's canon, I have had wonderful opportunities to live and serve alongside great Episcopalians far outside the area of the diocesan office, which is often called the diocesan bubble. And this has been an incredible blessing to me, because one of the things that I think is one of our huge gifts is that we have a theology that says we are one church. I grew up in a denomination that didn't think that. In fact, they said that the sister church down the street was the enemy. And when I came into the Episcopal Church in college, I found a church that worked together with the other congregations in town to do the work that God had given us to do. And that informs my ministry, and it helps me to see the great possibilities that we have together as a community of Christ, as a diocese, and as parishes working together to make this work happen. I worked in Waco, 4 hours away from Houston, the diocesan center. I served 3 congregations there, ranging from 100 to 200 to 400 on a Sunday. You can imagine the social and economic differences in these congregations. I assembled a team of leaders from each of those congregations, and we were able to create a community together, a consortium, a youth ministry consortium that served over 80 youth and their families, because we were a lot stronger together than we would have ever been apart. While rector of a congregation, I convinced them to regionalize their thrift shop, a thrift shop that had been running for 25 years. And what we did is we invited 2 smaller congregations from a county south of us that were struggling a bit, and we asked them to join us and to share in the proceeds from the thrift shop for outreach ministries. In doing so, we built a partnership with them that allowed us to hold our shop open on Saturdays for our clients that needed that opportunity. We built a community that had a better sense of our Episcopal identity together, and also in our individual congregations. And it also allowed us to see other ways that we could partner. It was incredible. As a convocational dean, I had 14 congregations in my cure, and 2 of those were multi-clergy. We had several that were non-stipendary priests, and lots and lots of economic differences there. The bishop tasked me with creating a clericus community of mutual sharing and support. I decided to take that a step farther, and what we did is we created a structure where we had vulnerable sharing of our successes and our struggles. And in so doing, what we found is that oftentimes the congregation over here that was struggling with something, there was another one over here that was having success. Or there was one that wanted to start a ministry here, and this one over here was already doing it and having success with it. So there was an information sharing there that created some incredible partnerships and a real community of caring. Now, as canon for stewardship in the Diocese of Olympia, I have not forgotten my days of living and working outside of the diocesan bubble. So I make it a priority to travel around the diocese to meet face-to-face with people in their congregations, to hear their stories, and to listen for solutions. And oftentimes what I find is that there's another congregation that has had success with something they may be struggling with. And I make connections for them, and they're able to help one another in the midst of that. And it also instills hope in them because they see that somebody else has been through that fire and they are able to succeed. I have a great passion for this, for building authentic community, and I have experience doing it. I see how that can work in this diocese in wonderful ways. And I think that one of the ways it's already happening is what's happened with Good Samaritan in Brownsburg. And I think we need to do more of this across the church, and I will continue to promote that. Thank you.
The third question, or I should say the second question, shouldn't I? How would you use your amplified voice in the church to serve our call to promote justice and the dignity of every human being in the church, in the local community, and in the greater world?
I love that this question is rooted in the 5 promises of our baptismal covenant, culminating there in the words of the 5th promise. I believe that if we are going to keep any one of these promises, that we have to keep all of them. to keep the one. They're so integrated together. And I think that bishops are called to lead us by word and example in keeping these promises. The social issues that you have named in your profile, poverty, gun violence, drug abuse, racism, and gender inequality, well, they fly in the face of these promises that we say that we will keep with God's help. And think about the devastation from natural disasters like Matthew and what's happened in Haiti and Cuba, the Bahamas, southeastern United States. And what about man-made disasters like the water crisis in Flint, Michigan? Our baptismal promises call us to act in these issues too. Now, I'm convinced that the people outside these walls know who Jesus is. What they want to know is, do we inside the walls of the church, do we know who Jesus is? And are we willing to do something about it out in the world? So I believe that it is imperative that the amplified voice of the bishop is employed to address these issues, others like them, and the structures that create these issues, because they conflict with our baptismal promises. They conflict in our local communities and our diocese, in the nation, and in the world. And we're called to act in those situations. But part of what I hear also in this question is the issue of power differentials. So often, the imbalance of power is the source of injustice. It is a source of injustice, hugely. And too many have their voices squelched because of their race, their gender, their sexuality, their nationality, their age, their level of education, their financial status, and even their religion. I had the wonderful opportunity, and I hesitate to say wonderful opportunity, the interchange was wonderful. But I took the opportunity when the bombings happened in Belgium to call the imam just down the street, to let him know that I was going to be praying for him, and our community would be too, and we would be praying for their community. And on Good Friday, I would be preaching about it at our ecumenical service, using my voice there to say, we are fellow children of God, and we have to be in relationship with one another in healthy ways, that we have a whole lot more in common than we do, and that makes us different, just as fellow human beings. But that doesn't mean that the richness of our diversity isn't a blessing. While we are fellow children of God, we are much richer through our diversity because of that truth. So as your bishop, I would use my voice to elevate the voices of those who are marginalized, so that all may be heard and seen with the human dignity that our baptismal promises demand of us. I will use my voice to bring people together, to address issues of injustice, establishing forums for those who have been dehumanized by society and even by the church, so that we can amplify their voices with respectful dignity, countering the imbalance of power with grace and mercy, working for reconciliation and faithful justice. It is crucial that the voice of justice and dignity be undergirded by authenticity through our actions. As we listen to the voices of those who face injustice, we must work with them for appropriate solutions in our unique local context. I believe when we do this well, at home first, then we have an authentic voice across the church and globally to enact. Do I have a little more time? So I'm committed to call on our deacons to lead us courageously in these justice ministries in our local context, to use civic leaders and advocacy organizations and media outlets to do this work. I will use my voice to get all hands on deck, because this is the work that Jesus was doing when he was here, working and living among us as in human form. And it is our work as his agents in the world. Thank you.
The third question is optional in the sense that Lance has chosen this question as one that he wants to address. It is this: the good news of Jesus Christ remains the same. However, the way in which it is proclaimed is changing rapidly. How have you used new ways of communicating the gospel, and what might you do in this diocese?
This is always a need for the church, constantly to be translating the gospel into new languages. And I believe this is part of our DNA and our Anglican heritage. As we think about our liturgical reformation put into the language of the people by Archbishop Cranmer, and then his hiring of Coverdale to publish the great Bible so that even the illiterate could hear the good word in plain English. What is most important in communicating the gospel is putting it in the language of the people, making it accessible to them in ways they can digest it and put it to use in their lives. Just like, that old Latin Bible in the 16th century, if it doesn't do people any good, or it doesn't do people any good if they can't understand what it means. But I think the most important ways that we can communicate the gospel are actually the ancient ways of telling our stories and preaching it with our lives. But I think somewhere along the way, we lost that. The definition of evangelism, right? One beggar telling the other beggar where the bread is. So one of the new ways I like to communicate the gospel is through drawing it out of people, helping them to tell their stories of the good news of Jesus moving in their lives. As Canon for Stewardship, I go around the diocese teaching people how to tell their stories. And one of the ways that I do this is by utilizing the African Bible study method, some hybrids of this approach that can help them articulate the gospel in their lives. Do you know what the African Bible study method is? You read it 3 times. The first time through, you listen for just a word or phrase that catches your attention in the group. Everybody responds to that. Then you do it a second time, listening for where it touches your life. And then you do it again a third time. And then you tell the action that God is calling you to today through the reading of that. Now, one congregation I worked with on this even spent all 3 months in the summer using this as their sermon. So they would read the gospel, and then they would pair up and answer the question. And then they would read it again, and then again the third time. And they did that for the 3 months. It was incredible how it changed their comfort level with sharing the story of Jesus Christ in their lives. So I would help all of us become more comfortable in sharing our stories and how it affects our everyday life. But just so you don't think that I've skirted what is probably part of the technology question, part of this question, I'll spend a little time speaking about that too. We have a multiplicity of channels today. It is increasingly more difficult to meet people where they are listening. So as I consult with communications experts and read up on it, what I hear over and over is that they say, choose a couple of places where you're going to broadcast and do that well, and then let everybody know where you're doing it, and then rely on others to take that and to put it out in other channels where they are communicating. So for the past 5 years, as Canon for Stewardship, I've sent out a weekly blog-type email to the broader church reflecting on our Sunday readings to help clergy and lay leaders teach and preach on stewardship each week. It's not always about money. Most of the time it's not. It's a holistic approach about how we live our lives as stewards, how we steward our gifts, how we steward the gospel, how we steward one another. 3 years ago, I added some links to that, some resource links, and they're on a column on the side, and that's been helpful too for people. I've created art and videos to communicate the gospel, for instruction, to extend a welcome, to convey a message to a group where I wasn't going to be able to be present. I also took the lead in developing an app in our diocese for communications, for news events, for sermons and videos, and other important information that we wanted to get out to the diocese. So I think that it is important that we teach people to tell their stories, and then we tell the stories ourselves over and over again, each and every day. Thank you.